Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles. My name is Jim Reynolds. My story begins with me sitting in my home office. I had taken my car in to get it serviced, and they brought me home while the work was being done. They would call me back when it was ready and either pick me up, or I could have my wife take me to pick it up. When I left, I didn't know I would be home during the process. While puttering around doing this and that, I heard my wife Jenny come home. I checked the window and saw that Celeste had driven up behind her. Momentarily, I heard my wife come in and then answer the door and let Celeste inside. I continued pottering for a moment and then began to venture downstairs. What I heard stopped me in my tracks and I paused to listen. Celeste, I just don't know what to do. I hate this situation. Jason says that if I don't comply, he will tell my husband. Did he do that to you also? Did you wake up in his bed and find out you had been molested, and that if you didn't return for a few more sessions, he would reveal my affair to my husband? Yes, it was like that. His pattern seems to be 6 sessions and then he moves on. I didn't get caught, but the guilt is tripping me out too. Did you hear that Candy's husband found out after the 5th session and promptly divorced her? He didn't even give her a chance to explain. Something about standard cheaters' excuses. Let me explain. That's why I'm so terrified of this situation. I'm a victim, but I may just lose my husband and family with no recourse. I'm glad that I had thought to record this with my phone. I think that it is my time to enter this conversation. I went down the stairs and joined them at the kitchen table. Both of them startled as I joined them. I said, "Hello." I overheard the conversation. Did he use GHB or something else? I don't really know. I was nursing my Virgin Mary. From then to when I woke up in his bed is blurry at best and blank mostly. What happened after you woke up? I think he used smelling salts to bring me around, and after that he showed me some selfies of us in various positions and the fact that he had my phone number and email and your phone number and email in his phone. Then he gave me a coke to clear my head and drove me back to the club. On the way, he told me that I would be making return trips to his house, or he would reveal my affair to my husband. He also gave me a key to let myself in. We arrived just before the girls were getting ready to leave. I asked, "Celeste, is that pretty much your story?" "Yes, it is, pretty much exactly." After the 6th session, he told me that I could go back to my husband now. He was moving on to fresh meat. Because Jenny doesn't drink alcohol, I thought she would be safe and didn't watch her carefully enough. This sounds like a serial predator. Do you know other women that he has victimized? I asked. Celeste offered. I don't know Candy's details, but she may have been the first in our group. I've noticed that Bev and Rona were fidgety for a couple of months and not at the same time. Speaking of Candy, I think her divorce finalized about 6 weeks ago. Jenny offered, and another other group of women. There are 2 that went through divorce due to infidelity. I think one's name is Liz and the other might be Terry or maybe Tori, I'm not sure. Liz got caught before Candy by a couple months, and the other one's divorce was just finalized a week ago or so. They may also have been victims. Celeste continued. Jason is a semi-frequent patron. Now that I think about it, I've only seen him show up for a couple of Fridays at a time, and that seems to be about every couple of months. Well, I said, that club seems to be his hunting ground. Why do you ladies go there? Jenny spoke up. I think most of the women go there because it's got a generous dance floor and the music is pretty good. Their husbands don't enjoy dancing, and there are men that will ask them to dance. Since you're heads and tails above the guys there, I rarely accept an offer. When I do, it's usually some poor bloke that has been rejected by several others and looks like he's having a bad night. Oh, mercy dance, if you will. Since I don't drink, I also go to support my friends and take care of them if they have a bit too much to drink. We know that some women go there to be picked up for the night, whether they're married or not. This fact provides a supply of men that usually dance better than average, which my friends and several acquaintances take advantage of. I would agree with that assessment. We all love to dance and our husbands don't, chimed in Celeste. That's something I think we can address later, I offered. We have some other things we need to do first. You 2 need to get STD tests. If you're clean, us husbands are probably good too. Next, we need to find as many other women who were targeted as we can, and in short order. Next, how did Jason set up the 5 following sessions? Jenny replied, so far, he has texted and told me to create a reason to call him in the next hour. For me, it was a job to the store for needed groceries. I used that excuse too, added Celeste. Jenny continued. Then I would call and we would work out how I would go to his place. He so far always chose Saturday afternoon. When I asked him about it, he said that that was a day and time that was usually easiest for married women to hide an hour or so. Then I'd have to come up with some excuse to be gone for about 2 hours, and I would go to this place, let myself in with the key, and then go to his bedroom. Then it was basically slam, bam, thank you ma'am, generic sex. He wasn't creative or very good. I just think he just gets high on having someone else's wife. I've never had an orgasm with him and he seemed to not care. Celeste added, that's essentially the same for me. By the way, I still have my key also. Boy, this guy is cruel and probably very egotistical. When do you expect the next text? I asked. So far it has been on Thursday evening. That would be tomorrow. Good. When you call him, tell him that I've already found out and that you will not be coming since he no longer has leverage. I'll get a simple script together. This guy's ego will probably insist that he boast about his behavior if you sound defeated and forlorn. Make sure you tell him I'm filing for divorce. Divorce? But I'm a victim. I'm not planning to divorce you, but I'm hoping you can convince him that I am. I'm hoping his ego will cause him to reveal his other conquests. Celeste, your husband is still in the National Guard, right? Yes, Roger is an MP in the Guard. That would be good. Once he finds that Jenny is no longer available for sport, I think he will go back on the hot. I need him and one other husband to sit quietly in the background at the club with me to try to stop his next conquest. You could tell him that I need help to stop the predator that assaulted my wife. We'll leave your exposure for better evidence later. Can I leave fighting the other women to you too? Start with the girls group. I can do that. I want this guy taken down so badly, but couldn't figure out how without a probable divorce, responded Celeste. Jenny asked, "Why do I need to be exposed?" I need Roger, and whomever else we recruit, to have motivation before they find out that their wives were also victimized. I'm hoping that Jason will regale you with his exploits in the upcoming call. To do what I have in mind, I need someone to get the drink of the victim. I hope Roger will go with me as we save the next victim from his clutches. With any luck, we can also begin to deal him some retribution. I understand, though I'm not really happy. With that, I stopped my recording. Jason did not disappoint. We sat at the kitchen table as she called. My phone was on record on the table as she called him. She put it on speaker before he answered. She was recording also. "Hello, Jenny, are you ready for Saturday afternoon?" "I won't be there. Jim already knows, and he started divorce proceedings. You are a monster." After a gleeful laugh, he continued, "If you hadn't found out, I would have released you after our 6th session. Either way, I win." "You assful. Who else have you done this to?" "I worked my way through all of your group, Celeste, Janet, Denise, Bev, Rona, and of course Candy. I interspersed each of them with Sue, Julie, Karen, Tiffany, Taylor, and of course both Liz and Tori, who weren't smart enough to keep from getting caught. I only target married women. Since they have marriages they want to try to keep, they stay quiet. The unlucky ones that get caught are almost always thrown out on their ears by their husbands and never get a chance to explain. I've still got a couple of potentials at that club, and then I'll have to move on. Boy, how I like the fact that most husbands don't like to dance and that most women do. It's a veritable field waiting to harvest. You are a horrible being. I hope someone castrates you and then helps you leave this vale of tears." He laughed some more, and then Jenny hung up. "What a gold mine," I said. "Doesn't Bev's husband work in a lab somewhere?" "I think you were right. Do you have his number?" "I need to see if he is suitable and then available starting tomorrow." After Jenny found his number, I called. "Bill, this is Jim Reynolds. Our wives are part of the girls' night out group." "Yes, I believe we've met. What are you calling about?" "As I recall, you work in a chemical lab of some sorts. Does your expertise include identifying GHB or some similar drug in what is left of someone's drink?" "No, but Cherry, in our office, has that expertise." "Why do you ask?" "My wife was sexually assaulted with a drug and then blackmailed to continue or else be exposed. I found out about it before this guy's antics ran their course, and it has stopped with her. The problem is that he's a serial abuser, and I would like to stop him. I believe that he may target someone else tomorrow. Would you help me?" "What do you need?" "Come with me and another husband of our wives group and stake out the place where our wives go. If he picks a target and begins to leave with her, I would like you to get her drink and have it evaluated for the type of drug he is using. I'd be happy to assist." "How many Fridays do you think it will take?" "With luck, just one, but maybe 2 or more. I'll clear my schedule. Call me with the details of when and where to meet." "Will do," I said. I asked my wife, "Call Celeste, please. I need her to be able to talk privately." Jenny dialed Celeste. "Celeste, can you talk privately?" "Give me a minute. I'll call you right back." 15 minutes later she called. My wife put it on speaker. "Hi Jenny, what do you need?" I replied, "Up grocery shopping." "How did you guess?" "Celeste, really?" Anyway, tonight's call with Jason was a gold mine. He listed everyone in your group plus 7 other women. 3 of the women went through divorce, including Candy. "Have you talked to Roger about my request?" "Yes, he is willing." "Wow, how did he get to all of us?" "He said that he interspersed you ladies with the others." "I'm going to let Jenny take over the conversation, and I'm going to ask you two to remember any details about your experiences and details about his house." "Thank you, and I'll sign off. Have Roger call me after you get back home." With that, I left the room and began further fleshing out my plans. About an hour later, Roger called. "Jim, Celeste says you need some help dealing with the predator." "Yes, I think he may be choosing a new victim soon. Can you stake out the club that our wives usually go to with me tomorrow night?" "What do you need me to do?" "I'll have a picture of him and hopefully a little more on his methods by tomorrow night. Bill Crystal, Bev's husband, will be with us." His job, if the predator strikes, is to get the victim's drink and then have it analyzed for what chemical he's using on his victims. UNL follow him out to his car, knock him down with a taser, get the victim to somewhere she can be helped, and then start the process of dealing with him. He said, "We should wear black. Do you have a ski mask or something?" "Yes, but it's red." "Don't worry, I'll bring something for you. I'll bring a taser that I'm comfortable with and will knock down a 300-pound man. Would some rope help?" "Yes, actually. Duct tape would also be good. I'll pick you up at 8:15 tomorrow night. I'll contact Bill and have him meet us." With that, I hung up and called Bill and set up the meeting. Then I met my wife in the dining room. "What did you two come up with?" I asked. Both of us remember that we were the only ones at the table while the others were engaged in dancing. With me, Shannon had stopped to talk with me before returning to the dance floor. So it seems that he targets his approach for that time when there are no others near from their specific group. He did dance with each of us several times during the evenings before he approached any of us, and was a respectable dancer. He didn't even dance that close, so our radar was never really up towards him. I also noticed that he seemed to stop asking those of us in our group shortly before Candy's situation blew up. "Do you have any pictures of him?" "Yes, I have several. Since I mostly didn't dance during our girls' night out, I would wander around taking pictures of the various men while they danced with us. Let me find them." With that, she started looking through the photos on her phone, and as we got some good ones that showed his face well and also his physique, from both the front and back, she sent them to me. Next, I want to ask about his house. "Do you have his address?" "Yes, we looked on Google to make sure it was the right house. 666 Mockingbird Lane. It turns out that it was inherited from his grandmother. His parents died when he was a teen and his grandmother finished raising him. Celeste made small talk with him hoping to find some way of exiting the blackmailed relationship and found out these facts. It's an older house in an area that still has large yards. Nearest homes are maybe 200 yards away, and the one in the direction you go to his house is boarded up and vacant. "What kind of stove does it have?" I asked. "It's a really old one. Once he was making tea when I got there, using an old tea kettle. There was a box of matches near the stove. I think you have to light it every time you use it." "Was there a toaster?" "Yeah, one of those 4 slices but only 2 slot ones." "Now about his bed. What kind is it, and what about head and footboards?" "It's double-sized with old brass head and footboards. Very sturdy." That's it for my questions. What else do you think I ought to know? It was about 15 minutes from the club and about 20 minutes from our house in good traffic. It's sort of at the edge of town in a lower-class neighborhood, but still kind of rural. I almost forgot. Did you ever see his car and remember it? It was Chrysler or Plymouth. One of those that looked old-timey on purpose. I think it was purple. When it came time for bed, we just held each other until we finally slept. Friday, at the appointed time, I picked up Roger and we went to the club. I had bought a black hoodie to go with my black jeans, black stockings, and black athletic shoes. Roger was dressed similarly. When we got there, Roger drove around the parking lot and found the purple Point Cruiser in the back. As we examined the area, we noticed that it would be easy to get from the back door to his car without appearing on any of the cameras around the building. For being so arrogant, he had planned this part of his routine well. By the time any of the cameras would catch sight of him, he would already be in his car, driving with a passenger. We parked next to his car, backing in. As we went to the entrance, I showed Roger the pictures of Jason. I had already moved the ones of him dancing with Celeste to another folder. Shortly after we got to the front of the building, Bill arrived. We had him park wherever, and then he joined us and headed in. I showed Bill pictures of Jason, having also moved the ones of him dancing with Bev to that same other folder. Still, we had enough good photos to recognize him shortly after we entered. We chose a table in the back where we could see most of the club and all of the ladies that were near the dance floor. I briefed them on the details that my wife had given me about his probable behavior patterns. I intentionally did not credit Celeste for any of this info, and thus, the stakeout began. We noticed several of the men approach ladies and asked them to dance. Jason was very average in appearance and seemed to give the lounge lizards first dibs. He did seem to be buddies with several of them. He did ask the other ladies to dance after the lizards let them go back to their seats. We did notice that he never attempted to dance with about half of the women there. As we watched, the other two mentioned that they wished they could dance as well as the guys out there, but were too intimidated by previous experiences with their own wives. Yes, that part of the plan will work in the future. As we watched, there were 3 women that got up and each left with one of the lizards. 2 of them were wearing wedding rings. We noticed that another pair of ladies were both wearing wedding rings and that one of them was being asked to dance frequently. She was the more flashy one, showing the most skin. We noticed that Jason spoke with one of the lizards and then that man asked the other lady to dance. While she was on the floor, Jason wandered by their table and seemed to hover his hand over the lady's drink for a moment. I said, "I think we have a victim. Let's see how this plays out." The lady returned and took a strong swig of her drink. Her friend continued to stay on the dance floor. After about 10 minutes we saw Jason go over and engage the lady in conversation. He had danced twice with her earlier in the evening. As we watched she started acting woozy. Her friends seemed to be wrapped up in her dancing. Jason came to her side of the table and acted like he was helping a drunk woman go back towards the bathrooms. As he left, I motioned to Bill to retrieve her half-drunk drink and depart. He knew his role. Roger and I got up and moved towards the back door. As we exited, we passed the couple and made a snide remark about her state of intoxication. We had only seen her drink one drink, and then half of the second drink, the one we think we saw him spike. We went to my car and Roger retrieved his taser. We took out paintball masks and put them on while facing away from the couple. We also put on nitrile gloves to prevent any fingerprints. As they got to his car, I moved into place to catch her when Roger tossed Jason. I caught her and said I would take her back into the club and tell her friend that it looked like she had too much to drink. Roger took out a bandana that I had prepared with a cutout for a nose. He put it on Jason and then wrapped duct tape around his eyes and mouth with the bandana protecting his face from the sticky side of the tape. He wrapped Jason's hands with tape with the hands in an approximate folded position. He then placed him in the passenger side and duct taped his feet together. Then he got in the driver's side. I had returned to the car by this time, and we set out for Jason's home. Google got us there in about 15 minutes, just like Jenny had said. Roger had to taser him again as he started to revive. We ended the duct tape around his hands and feet so that anyone noticing us would simply think that we were helping a drunk friend to get home. We got him inside, stripped him, and put him on the bed. As he began to stir, Roger tossed him again. I asked Roger if he knew how to tie a hangman's noose. He replied that he did, and I asked him for one after he secured his right hand to the headboard. We duct taped the knots at his hands and at the headboard. Next, Roger tied the hangman noose. While he was doing that, I took out some half-inch medical tape that I had brought and tightly with the tape around the area just above his knots. Then we took the noose and that quarter-inch nylon rope and tightened it around his tool and knots. Then we tied it, fairly tightly, to the footboard. Again, we duct taped the knots on the footboard. Boy, I think I never want to get on your bad side. For an otherwise quiet guy, you've got a real vicious streak, said Roger. I quickly examined his home and took a few salient pictures. Let's get out of here, I said, and we got into my car and went home. On the way to Roger's house, I spoke up. Roger, he drugged his victims and then sexually assaulted them. When they woke up, he blackmailed them to return or he would reveal their infidelity to their husbands. It seems the intimacy was nothing but him getting his rocks off, but progressed from vanilla intimacy to include a BJ. After that, he would let them go back to their husbands. He only targeted married women. I think he was just notching his belt, so to speak. Tell me how you would respond if that happened to Celeste. It would hurt, but I think I would be more concerned with my wife's trauma. Even if she completed his course and he sent her back, I queried. She would have been blackmailed, right? How could you not look at your wife as a victim? That's been my thoughts exactly. I dropped him off and went home to my wife. How did it go, she asked. We managed to save a woman from his clutches, and we hope we sent a strong message to not do that again, but we know he's not right in the head, so he will probably go back to his regular tricks before long. Oh, and it would probably be best not to ask what we did. Suffice it to say that he has suffered no permanent damage at this point. We didn't even beat him up, just left him in a sticky situation. Celeste and I went to a doc in the box and got tested on Thursday morning. We should have results before next week is over. That's good. I would like to task you and Celeste with gathering all the wives that Jason admitted to victimizing together in a meeting with me. Some room that will later be large enough for them and their husbands. In the first meeting, I want to let all the women know that they were not alone in being victimized. Can I ask you to do that? I don't think that will be a problem. We know a few of the other women and think that we can contact all of them through them. I'll get together with Celeste tomorrow. Up for a good cuddle. You know it, I responded, and we went to bed. Wednesday brought 3 pieces of news. Bill contacted me with the lab results. GHB at a dosage that was too close to being dangerous for comfort. The lab results came back and both ladies were clean. I had surmised that based on his choice of married ladies that the risks of an STD were slim, but we didn't know if one of his conquests had picked one off somewhere. Some of the women we watched that day seemed awfully cavalier in their attitudes. Lastly, Jenny confirmed that all of the women had been contacted, but they were still trying to figure out a room. On Friday, a room had been found and a meeting had been set for a week from Saturday in the afternoon. The venue would be a community clubhouse that had a medium-sized ballroom. We would meet in the ballroom at 4 p.m. That Saturday came, and we met. We pulled up chairs into a semicircle with me at its focus. Jenny sat behind me on my right and Celeste behind me on my left. I called roll to see if everyone was there. Candy asked, "Why are we here?" "That's coming up right now." I turned on a small boombox and made sure that my phone was connected through Bluetooth and played the audio clip of me discovering Jenny's problem. I played it up to the point that I asked, "This sounds like a serial predator. Do you know other women that he has victimized?" I then asked all the women in the room if they had a similar experience to raise their hand. Mouths dropped open in astonishment as everyone raised their hands. How did you know? Asked Tiffany. Many of us aren't part of your wife's circle. I played the phone call. They were speechless. After a moment I spoke. I would like to meet together with all of you again with your husbands present, especially with the ex-husbands. I know that Candy's husband never gave her a chance to say anything. I assumed that the other two were similar idiots. There was a snicker as I said the word idiots. I would like to play the same audio files as I did for you and have you out yourselves to your husbands, not for infidelities, but as victims of a serial sexual offender. I've already spoken to Celeste's husband, without outing her, and he expressed feelings like mine. I would then like to propose a fix for this imbalance and all of your marriages. Please don't ask what yet. I think it will be better to hear it at the same time as your husbands. They visited with each other for a bit, and then Candy spoke up. How do I get my ex-husband to show up? I asked. Your husband Rocky is ex-Special Forces, correct? Roger should be able to get him to come. I'll add my impetus also if needed. He doesn't need to know that you will be here. Are there any husbands that could get Liz and Tori's husbands here? Tiffany spoke up. Those of us who are not in your particular girls' night out group will get together and figure it out. To whom do we owe this meeting space? I asked. Taylor spoke up. That would be me. Can we get this room again in, say, 2 weeks? Same time? I think so. I'll confirm it with your wife. How about the rest of you? Will that work? Sue spoke. It works for me, and I'm sure I can get my husband here. The guilt is killing me, and I want desperately to regain a sense of closure and normalcy. The rest of the women chimed in the affirmative. The divorced ones looked hopefully at me, and I smiled back. The next week and a half was a flurry of activity. The room was confirmed, and by the Wednesday before the Saturday meeting, all attendees were confirmed. Saturday, Jenny and I showed up early, and we set up an old home theater system that we still had. It was stereo and had 200 watts of power. I had experience that it would sufficiently fill this room with sound. Then Jenny and I began setting chairs around in a semicircle with 2 chairs at the focal point for me and my wife. Next, we placed papers on the floor indicating which side of the semicircle was for men and which was for women. We had split the semicircle in 2 with about 4 feet separating the sides. As the couples began to enter, they looked puzzled but settled into a seat in their respective area. After everyone was in place, except the 3 divorced ladies, Jenny led the men from the side room where we had asked them to wait. As they walked in, Rocky said in a louder voice than needed, "Hey, what is my ex-wife doing here? What are you trying to pull here?" The other 2 yahoos piped in together almost in unison. "Yeah, why are they here?" I replied, "If your assholes would be quiet, I'm about to get to that." I then played the first audio file just as I had with the ladies. As Roger started listening, he heard his wife's voice and had a concerned look on his face that then turned into a knowing smile. "All right, he's really with me." I asked the men, "How would you feel if this happened to your wife?" Like Roger had earlier, they expressed that they would be concerned, but they would see their wife as a victim and work past the hurt. "Are you sure?" I asked. To a man, they said yes. Then I asked, "Ladies, how many of you have experienced this yourselves?" The husbands' mouths dropped open as they saw their wives' hands go up. How many of the ladies in my wife's group were terrified of the consequences of your husbands finding out after what happened to Candy? All the women in my wife's group raised their hands. By this time Rocky was bawling his eyes out. "Who was the first to get a divorce of you other women?" "I was," replied Liz. "Were the rest of you also terrified because of what happened to Liz?" The rest of the women raised their hands. Now George, Liz's ex-husband, and Nathan, Tori's ex-husband, were blubbering just like Rocky. I now need to play another audio file. I played the phone call. All the men were hanging their heads in shame as they realized that their wives ventured into an unsafe environment because of their unwillingness to dance with them. Now we should share the blame. How many of you men don't like to dance because you felt inadequate and emasculated when your wife tried to teach you to dance by leading you? All of the men's hands slowly raised. Now, my wife, who does have a husband who can dance, became collateral damage while trying to support her friends. I could be short-sighted like you 3 and blame you all and cut myself off from you. Or I could see if I can rectify this situation. How many are willing to hear me out? All hands raised. All right, because we have 3 ladies who probably can't stand their exes right now, I'm going to ask each of you to pair up with someone who is not your spouse. I'm going to ask Liz to accompany me, and I'm asking Jenny to accompany Rocky, who is in the running for biggest jerk here tonight. Please move the chairs to the walls and clear the dance floor. All we will be doing tonight is seeing if we can walk on rhythm. Please take your partner and get in an oval shape. For you men, think of a dirt racing oval where all the turns are left. Men stand on the outside, ladies on the inside. Take your partner's hand, man's left and lady's right. To begin with, I'm just going to count a cadence. This will not be a march, but a simple walk-in cadence. Men starting left and women starting on their right foot and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, keep going, now. 5, 6, go backwards now. 5, 6. Go forwards now. Keep going in that rhythm while I take a look at you. After a couple of moments, you may stop now. So far so good. Now I'm going to play a song with a contemporary sound that has a moderate rhythm that is relatively easy to find. I started EXO's Mama on my laptop that I had connected to the home theater system. I had found a version on YouTube that didn't have the theatrical prelude, but started with the actual music. I counted to get them started and like before asked them to change direction a few times. Though we stopped, I, as the judge, am declaring that you are all capable of learning to dance. Are you willing to give it a go? What kind of time commitment would this require? Asked Bill. I can teach you enough to get by with most songs in about an hour and a half. You'll learn to dance about 4 to 6 inches away from your partner. As such, and because of the dynamics with the divorced persons, I'm going to ask you to switch partners often so that hopefully you will get to dance with everyone. This will benefit you in several ways. One is that you will be more focused on learning when you are not with your spouse, and you will also be mostly stepping on or being stepped on by people other than your spouse. This should make for fewer fights when you get home. At any rate, save the vertical couch dancing for your spouse. After that you will probably need 2 to 4 more sessions to review, ask questions and practice. I can manage that, said Bill. How about the rest of you? Surprisingly, we got a consensus. By the way, asked Roger, what do you mean by verticals couch dancing? That's what you probably did back in high school and what those lounge lizards tried to do with your wives at the club. You know, where you looked like you were glued together from the knees to your shoulders. That got a bunch of snickers and giggles. Taylor, would it be possible to book this room for 4 weeks in a row, say at this same time? Yes, I think so. Does everybody agree? Lots of heads bobbed up and down. Can we start next week? Asked Celeste. Again, more heads bobbing. As we were gathering our stuff and saying our goodbyes, the 3 yahoos came up to me and Rocky stated, personally, I would like to off the bastard. I don't see the courts doing any of us justice in this case without adding to the trauma they've already experienced, and we feel so responsible for making a bad situation worse. Wouldn't it be better if you had a bad accident and everyone had a perfect alibi? You were special forces, I'm sure you could pull off something like that. Why don't you 3 figures out a way to meet discreetly with each other? I have some information that can help you sort things out, but I don't want to be anywhere near the planning. What I don't know, I can't tell to someone else. Contact me when you're ready. Don't wait too long. I think this guy will be up and running his scam again soon, and I would hope that we could nip it in the bud. Got it. We'll contact you. In the middle of the week, I got a call to invite me to come to Rocky's apartment in the evening after dinner. I conferred with Ginny at dinner and left to the address they had texted me after we finished. At Rocky's apartment I met with all 3 of them. Since Rocky lived alone after the divorce, they decided that it would be safe there. I pulled out my iPad and pulled up Jason's address. Make sure you get this. Then I showed them pictures of the house and car. They verified the house with a street view of the address. Next was a picture of a couple of stacks of old, worn adult magazines in the bottom of his closet. After that was a picture of his toaster and one of his stoves, with the matchbox on the counter next to the stove. Why those pictures? Inquired Nathan. What can I say? I'm a Jason Bourne fan. Rocky looked at me with a puzzled look that quickly turned into a broad smile. Since I suspect that Rocky will do the heavy lifting in this enterprise, I suggest that you 2 dig into his habits and schedules. I get it, said Rocky. I can organize them from here. The less you know, the better. We are the ones that screwed up the most, so if there is any kickback from our endeavors, it should fall on us. George asked, do you think we can ever be forgiven for our stupidity? I honestly don't know. You guys put them through the ringer while they were already traumatized. That's a pretty big hole to dig yourself out of. I'd start by being civil and polite during our dance classes. Trying to move too fast will only make things worse for you. Oh, before I forget, here is a key to his house. How did you get it? He gave each of the women a key so that they could take themselves to their own private torture chamber. This one is the one he gave to my wife. I know of 4 other women who still have theirs. We twist the knife some more. How could we have been so proud and stupid? Said Rocky. Don't worry, we'll bring this chapter to a close. We'll also be on our best behavior around our exes. With that I said goodbye and went home. Before our first class, I organized a YouTube list so that I could have my desired rhythms in order. On the day of our first class, we arrived early and set up our equipment. At 2 minutes past 4 the last couple entered, muttering apologies. If you remember, I'm going to treat you as though none of you are married to anyone else here. I'm going to ask you to change partners frequently. Ladies, I've already gotten a promise out of your exes that they will be on their best behavior during these classes, so please accept them as your partners as they come around. It will only be for a moment. Now, can we have the ladies line up on this side of the room and the gentlemen on the opposite side? Please face each other. Now, gentlemen, please ask a lady who is not your spouse to dance and get back in the racetrack arrangement. With this I asked the couples who had divorced ladies as partners to move so that each could have free partner swaps, or more, before they encountered their exes. Since we are dancing as friends and not lovers, this would be best. We went through the basics of the dance movements and then I played Lemonade by NCT 127 and my wife and I walked around and answered questions as best we could. Surprisingly, they weren't doing too badly. As the song approached the bridge, I stopped the music. Please get back in your oval. Gentlemen, thank this lady for the dance and move around the oval forward to the next lady. Make sure to get each other's names. We're trying to be a friend group, so we should also know each other's names. We will repeat what you did, only with this new partner and a new song. This time I played Unbreakable by Kim Hyun-jung and my wife and I again helped those with questions. As we got to about the minute-and-a-half mark, I paused the music and cued the next song. For this next but I need someone that I haven't danced with before, which is most of you. Tiffany, would you be my demo model for this demonstration? Sure. But why me? You appear to move well, you are about the right height for us to work well together, and most importantly, you have no idea what I'm about to do. Should I be terrified? No, you'll be fine. I want everyone to observe and listen to everything I say to her. I took her hand and led her into the center of the oval. We took dance position and I made minor adjustments to her position, and then I made some small movements to see if she was following me well. With that I asked my wife to cue the music. I had chosen Charlie Puth's Attention as its tempo was a little quicker and easier for me than the slower ones I had chosen for teaching purposes. We glided around the floor and she kept up with me delightfully well. We had a couple of fumbles which we laughed off and then continued. We stopped and I indicated for my wife to cut the music. As we parted, Tiffany did a little giddy running step in place and squealed. Then she said, "That was so much fun. Jenny, I'm jealous. You get to dance with them all the time." "Not near often enough," replied my wife. Derek, Sue's husband, asked, "You danced outside of her a lot. What is that dance step called?" "That is the cross. It's next on the agenda." The husband soon had a flurry of questions and were answered soon. About 5 minutes later we were ready for music. I chose Royals by Lured. About 2 minutes later I had them switch partners. 2 of the ex-wives were now with their ex-husbands and the third would be next time. I chose Hard by Shiny. After about 2 minutes I had them switch again and played Who by Astro. For the next 15 minutes we'll just let you continue to work on the steps we've learned today. We'll tackle the other steps in the succeeding weeks. With partner changes after every song I played the following songs. Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. I Hate That by Key. Any Meeny by Unknown. It No Sunshine by Bill Withers. Cool Night by Sleepy and Song Ji-yoon. Veil by Lay. And Chocolate by Max Chauman. After a 5-minute break we began the next rhythm. We talked about 3-step patterns with the last dance. This next dance is going to deal with that in a different manner. Most of these songs will be a quicker tempo. For this dance we are going to combine a walk with a chas. The walk will take 2 beats and the chas, 2 steps, will also take 2 beats. That becomes slow, quick, quick. First, we will try a box pattern. Will everybody return to the floor with the partner you had last? We then taught the box pattern and also moving forward and backwards. I played New Dance by XG. They got a kick out of the title given what we were doing that day. After switching partners, we added an extended chas which introduced extra quicks to the repertoire. Then we taught them to turn them, so that you could use that step to work your way down the floor. Next, I played IMB by Tion. Switching partners again we taught quarter turns, both left and right. Then we taught them that if they combine them appropriately, they use them to work their way down the floor and not just dance in a small circle. Next was Shivers by Ed Sheeran. We continued switching partners and playing songs from my list. We mixed some songs in for the first dance and watched them as they tried to figure out which dance to do to which rhythm. After about a half an hour, we called it quits for the evening. Candy, Liz and Tori came up while we were closing up and getting ready to leave and told us how grateful they were for whatever I said to the exes as they were on their best behavior. "Thanks, and we're looking forward to next week," said Tori. Shortly after that Rocky, George and Nathan came up. "Thanks for inviting us. We know that we screwed up royally and made things difficult for many people. We're grateful for the tolerance everyone has shown, especially you, Jem." Then Rocky looked at me with a twinkle in his eye and said, "What you don't know you can't tell." I think I caught a smirk from the other two as well. We finished packing and then joined Roger and Celeste for dinner at one of our favorite places. We happened to see Candy, Liz and Tori there and invited them to join us. We ordered, ate, and were waiting for dessert when Candy noticed a news article on her feed. She told us to look for it, and we read that there had been an explosion at 666 Mockingbird Lane at about 5 p.m. that day. Preliminary findings indicated that there had been a gas leak of some kind that had been ignited. They've only found one victim so far, and his remains were burnt beyond recognition. It is assumed to be the homeowner. The article explained that there were remnants of several vodka bottles beneath the victim's bed, and preliminary assumptions are that these broke and engulfed the bed in an inferno after the explosion. Still, results were preliminary and subject to change. One of Roger's MP buddies was a member of the police force, and Roger met up with him a few days later at the station and struck up a conversation with him about the incident at 666 Mockingbird Lane, as it was such an unusual event. He shared that there was one anomaly. There had been one of those small portable fireproof safes in a corner of the bedroom where the victim was found. In it were several old adult magazines and man's tool, complete with the sack and nuts, bloody of course. The body was so badly burned that they had a hard time hiding the body, but the results of the DNA test matched the tool to the body. The other oddity in the safe was 15 of what looked like house key blanks. When his friend walked away for a moment, he took a photo with his phone of the evidence photo showing the man's tool. He thanked his friend, and they talked some more about the case. Eventually the police chalked it up as an accident, although they never could explain the contents of the safe. They just couldn't find any leads. Any phones that he may have had were missing. When Roger showed the photo to Celeste and Jenny, they both concurred that it belonged to Jason. There was a birthmark on the top of his tool that both recognized. "Can you create a 4x6 of that on the printer?" asked Celeste. "Sure, why?" asked Roger. "Print it, and then scrub the photo from your phone. I'll show the photo to the ladies. I think it will help in the healing process. Once I'm done, I will burn it." We finished our dance classes and everyone was beginning to show some comfort on the dance floor. Next, we began having date nights at the free clubs in town that had decent facilities. I think it really helped the women to have their husbands with them when we went to the club where all the drama started. That was good. One night, about a year after we started to address the problem that was Jason, we were at the club when another couple walked in. Rocky immediately walked over to the gentleman and began chatting with him. After a moment, he brought them over to the four of us. Rocky began, "Jenny, Celeste, this is Martha. She's the 15th key. Joey has remarried her, and they came to us hoping they could find some closure. Can they talk to us about how we dealt with everything?" Celeste let out a sharp whistle and gathered the girls around her and briefly explained the situation. Taylor piped up and said that there is a conference room in her clubhouse, and it is almost always open on Saturday afternoon. Should we assume 4 p.m. tomorrow? We all nodded in agreement. We all gathered in the conference room, thanked Taylor again, and began introductions around the table. When we finished, Martha asked those who had gone through divorce how they were doing. "All seeing our exes, but we're not ready for the long-term commitment yet," said Liz. Candy asked, "How did you two get back together?" "A little over a year ago I returned to the area, from where I had moved to, and tried to come up with a plan to deal with the man who ruined my marriage. While looking over the property, I met Nathan. He told me the rest of the story. I nearly went catatonic when I realized what I had done to Martha. Nathan took me to meet with George and Rocky. They brought me up to speed and gave me a key. I asked when they were going to all be together again. The rest is a secret. As to how we got together, I was so horrified at what I had done that I basically groveled at her feet every chance I got. I wore her down after 4 months, and we started dating again. 6 months later, we got married again in a small, quiet civil ceremony. She was still feeling a malaise, so I thought of seeking you guys out to see if you could help her out." Candy spoke up. "Now don't you guys get any ideas. We're not quite done being mad at you." That brought up a few snickers. "Actually, it was Jim," said Roger. From the conversation he overheard, he understood that his wife and Celeste had been brutally victimized and blackmailed. He got Jenny to get Jason talking about who else he had victimized. With that, he recognized where things needed to be fixed and went about organizing it. Both Jenny and Celeste were incredibly helpful in getting things worked out. He, Bill, and I managed to save another woman from being victimized. "What? Why didn't we ever hear about it?" asked Tiffany. "Trust me, you never want to see Jim's vicious side. He wasn't permanently hurt as anyway, but I'm pretty sure that he felt more terror than any of his victims. Funny that. Last I saw him, he seemed scared of his own shadow," quit Joel. "That almost makes me feel as good as seeing that his house had an explosion due to a gas leak," said Martha. "That helps me a lot actually, knowing that he suffered like his victims. Him just dying in an accident just didn't feel right. He needed to suffer." "Joel, what did you do when you worked here?" Nathan asked. "I was a vet at the veterinary clinic on the north end of town." "What do you do, Martha?" asked Liz. "Just this and that. Just stuff I could do anywhere." Julie inquired, "Have you thought of coming back? There is a great support group here that knows exactly what you've been through." Joel looked at his wife, and their eyes met. "We'll talk about it." After that, we devolved into ordinary conversation that lasted until we left the room at 6 p.m. 6 months later, we gathered at a housewarming for Joel and Martha. 5 of the ladies in our group were at various stages of pregnancy, including Tori, who was just starting to show. They were talking about becoming legal again, and we were looking forward to a big party, even if it was after a courthouse wedding. Both my wife and Celeste were among those pregnant, and we looked forward to our families growing. Jason had a reign of terror in our community, but we had fought back and reclaimed our lives and our dignity. Life was good. Dear listeners, this amazing story was written by our dear friend, Robert Frost. Just a small trivia about him: he teaches social dance. Please show your love for his work in the comment section and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.